Welcome to Piano Inspires podcast, celebrating pianists, teachers, and innovators as they share their inspiring stories about the transformative power of music.
Attention piano teachers, are you looking to take your teaching to the next level? Introducing a must-have resource for your collection, Inspired Piano Teaching by Marvin Blickenstaff. Delve into this groundbreaking book where decades of wisdom and innovative teaching strategies come together. Marvin Blickenstaff, renowned piano pedagogue, shares his expertise on cultivating musicality, fostering creativity, and nurturing a lifelong love for music in students of all ages. Whether you're looking to refine your teaching techniques or seeking fresh inspiration, Inspired Piano Teaching offers practical advice, engaging anecdotes, and actionable tips that will transform your lessons. Don't miss out on this opportunity to enhance your teaching journey. Visit pianoinspires.com/publications to learn more and order your copy today. Take advantage of this exclusive offer and use code PODCAST15 at checkout for 15% off Inspired Piano Teaching. Thank you for listening to the Piano Inspires podcast and enjoy the episode.
Hello, I'm Alejandro Cremaschi. I'm Director for Research Advancement at the Francis Clark Center for Keyboard Pedagogy and Piano Professor at the University of Colorado Boulder. My guest today is Dr. Tracy Cowden. Tracy is professor in music and director of the School of Music at the University of Texas, San Antonio. Her professional life centers around making music with others and includes a wide range of music and partners, from the music of Jane Austen's songbook to klezmer-influenced music to American fiddle music. She has presented masterclasses and workshops on topics related to collaborative music making and creative programming across the country and at many conferences like MTNA, the College Music Society, and of course, NCKP. Tracy's recent work includes performing in healthcare settings, both in person and virtually, and facilitating research regarding music and health. She's a member of the Brain Health Consortium at UT San Antonio. She received the DMA and master's degrees in piano accompanying and chamber music from the Eastman School of Music and a BM degree in piano performance from Western Michigan University. So, Tracy, thank you so much for your willingness to be here and to do this podcast with me.
My pleasure.
Good. So we usually like to ask our guest to give us a little bit of your personal story. How did you start with piano? What attracted to it? Tell us a little bit about your first years.
So I started piano on the late side for someone who ended up doing it as a profession. I was almost 9. I begged to take piano lessons. I did not come from a musical family. We didn't have any instruments in the house. My parents say that I was attracted to piano as an infant. They tell a story that's kind of famous in our family about going to the Elks Club with my grandmother when I was 2, and I was fascinated by the piano player in the Elks Club and couldn't take my eyes off of him. And I don't remember that, of course, but I do remember being fascinated by the piano and by our church pianist and organist. And my cousins who were younger than me had started piano before me because their father was a pianist and organist, and I just begged to take piano lessons. And, my parents were, my dad was a firefighter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She had a degenerative eye disease, and she really couldn't work outside of the home. She lost her driver's license when she was 30, and I was 6 months old. So it would have been, impossible for her to work outside of the home, really. So it was a big investment for them to buy a piano, and a big risk, really. But they did it. They bought a brand new Wurlitzer upright piano, and I was able to take lessons because there happened to be a piano teacher who lived 4 houses down the street, so I could walk to lessons. And
what was her name?
Marilyn Sluka, and she was an amazing teacher. And she, at one point, after I finished studying with her, was the president of the Michigan Music Teachers Association, and she was a wonderful teacher. And I studied with her from the time I started all the way until I graduated from high school.
Wow, yeah, many years there.
Many years, yes.
Yeah. So you said a little later than other kids.
Yeah, yeah. So in those. But I moved fast because I was very motivated.
Right.
So, I cruise through the method books and things. But, in those high school years, it was interesting and challenging doing competitions and things like that, because a lot of the kids at that age, they had been studying twice as long as I had. So it was, it was interesting. So
yeah, very good. Yeah, it's interesting. I was also late starter at one of the things. I'm not sure if this is your case, the case with you, but one of the things that I remember how I learned certain things related to piano technique and things like that. Things that others perhaps don't remember as much when they were 4.
Yeah.
And that
true.
helped me actually teach those things.
Oh, that's
I don't know
true.
If that's the case with you.
Yeah, that's true. I probably was much more aware of how I was learning along the way too.
Right.
And the Michigan Music Teachers Association had this amazing Achievement Day program that was, very influential and formative for me in terms of this annual process of including sight reading and ear training and technique. And, we had annual tests that included all of these things, written theory tests and everything. And that was really helpful in, forming a kind of complete musicianship from the very beginning. So that was really helpful as well. And, so, yeah.
I'm wondering also if you, at this time during, pre-college, if you had already discovered collaboration and playing with others, or is that something that happened later?
It happened in high school. I would say before that, I was aware of it because of church music. We were very active in the Presbyterian church that I grew up in, and certainly that church organist from my childhood was very influential and encouraged me very much. I think when I was in high school, he encouraged me to play for church occasionally. And so I learned from him a bit about playing hymns for the congregation and, just gradually playing for Vacation Bible School and things like that. So I had a pretty safe environment in which to start doing that in the early part of high school. And then the thing that really took off for me was my high school choir director. I played clarinet. That was my instrument in the public school system. And you had to kind of choose band or choir. You couldn't really do both because there were only so many hours in the day. And whatever. But the high school choir director found out that I was a pianist, and he came over and pulled me out of the band room after school, and he had a select choir that met after school. And his name was Lowell Everson, and he happened to be one of his first jobs when he graduated from grad school. He went to Catholic University for his graduate degree. He was the pianist for the Army Chorus in DC.
Oh, wow.
And so he sat me down and made me sight read a choral accompaniment for this select choir after school. I mean, it was trial by fire. And but it was really fun. And thankfully, Mrs. Sluka had taught me sight reading. And so and I loved it. I loved learning new music. I just, ate it up. And so thankfully that was a good skill for me. But I learned a lot from him about the sight reading under pressure. And, and then I learned everything, choral, score reading, and how to prepare, introductions in the right way, and, how to work volume-wise with a whole large ensemble, because then I ended up playing for the larger choirs as well. So he really taught me a lot, and that really opened up my eyes to the possibility of working with others. And then I ended up playing for friends and colleagues for solo and ensemble, and his wife taught private voice lessons. And I played for her students for solo and ensemble, and she kept saying every year, she'd say, "Tracy, I wish you would take voice lessons so that you could learn how to breathe with the singers." And eventually I did learn more how to do that, but I had an amazing experience through high school doing that, along with my solo playing, and that really opened doors for me later. It's actually playing for one of her students is how I ended up at Western Michigan University. I played for one of her star students at the state level solo and ensemble competition. And one of the voice teachers at Western Michigan University heard us, and they had a little summer 2-week music program. And she told the director of that program, "You need to get this pianist to come to this program," which was an amazing thing. And eventually I did. The first time I got an invitation from them to come to what's called seminar at Western Michigan University, I was already committed to going to All-State at Interlochen. so I couldn't do it, but they invited me again the next year and gave me a scholarship to come to this summer program. And so I did. It was a summer after my junior year of high school, which is, of course, the perfect time to do that. And I studied with Phyllis Rappaport, and basically that was the end of the story. It sealed the deal. It sealed the deal. Phyllis was an amazing teacher, and I had the opportunity to accompany a trumpet player at seminar, and that was a really fun experience. And so I ended up at Western for my undergrad.
I think you were so lucky to have those experiences so early on in high school. Not many. We sometimes get undergrads who've never accompanied anyone,
right?
Which is kind of scary.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So my next question was about when did you decide to become a pianist? And this, I think, may have answered that, right?
And it did, except that I did not know that you could really have a career as a collaborative pianist. Mm-hmm. I still didn't know that when I went to Western to pursue my music studies, and I was a first generation college student, and was very concerned about making sure that I was going to put my degree to good use. And by that time, with my experience in piano competitions and my experience with college auditions for a performance degree, I knew where I stood compared to people who had been playing a lot longer than me. Mm-hmm. I had a very pragmatic vision of, I'm not going to have a career as a concert pianist. Right. And so I went to college planning to major in performance and minor in business. Uh-huh. And my initial plan was I will go on and get a graduate degree in arts administration, and that's what I will do. That was my initial plan. And by the end of my freshman year in college, I found out that you could actually get graduate degrees in accompanying and chamber music and do that as a career.
Right.
So, but I kept the business minor. I actually kept it. I did. I mostly did that to honor my parents and, show them that I was going to make sure that I had this pragmatic experience while I was in school.
I'm curious to see hear if perhaps the business minor actually helped in some ways in your future career, as you've been an administrator and
I think it helped more in the professionalization part of things than anything else. I mean, just there were a couple of classes on business writing and things like that, and those certainly helped a lot as I moved into my graduate degree. The other things, I mean, accounting and finance certainly gave me a lot of confidence in my ability to do that kind of work. Right. And I've used some of that eventually, but but there are some things I still in hindsight had wished that I had pursued a French minor, which would have helped me in my collaborative work because I loved studying languages, and that was the language that I took in high school, and I'd placed pretty high in a placement test at the university, but there was no way I was going to extend past 4 years. My parents were helping me. I had a pretty good sized academic scholarship, but I needed to finish on time. So. Right. Only one minor. I could only do one minor. So.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, in terms of also thinking a little bit about you also becoming an administrator later on, the fact that you're also have collaborated with people. I think, collaborative piano, you need to have people skills. Absolutely. And that's also good for administrative work, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That has far more to do with it than the business minor, for sure.
Yeah, who cares about accounting? It's how you treat people and how you talk to people. And that's wonderful. So you went to, did your master's DMA at Eastman, and then what? What happened after that?
Well, there were actually 2 years in between my master's and my DMA. I got married, moved back to Kalamazoo, and for a couple of years, I was a freelance pianist and adjunct professor at Kalamazoo College and Hope College for 1 year, and Kalamazoo College for 2 years, and taught individual piano lessons and did all of that work, and then went back to Eastman for my DMA.
Oh, okay.
So then I was hired at Ohio Wesleyan University, and I taught there for 4 years, and that was a non-tenure track position, and I was both a staff accompanist and I taught secondary piano and class piano. Okay. So that was a very good experience for me.
What time? When was that?
2000 to 2004. Okay. So yeah, and then from there I went to Virginia Tech in a tenure track position that was collaborative piano. Primarily vocal coaching was what they wanted me, and really what they wanted me to do was play for singers and help in the voice area. But it expanded to much more than that. I did a lot of things there. I taught oral skills. I taught class piano. I did coach singers and accompany student singers. I worked with the opera program. I taught solo piano and eventually became chair of the program in my last 5 years there. So
many hats.
and went through the ranks, So
Right.
I ended up there as associate professor and chair, and then came to the University of Texas
As chair. As chair. Are you teaching piano or
a little bit?
Piano?
I do still have a small teaching load, and I do some either coaching chamber music or teaching accompanying or working with some graduate pianists on chamber music or accompanying, usually collaborative piano lessons. I haven't taught solo piano lessons at UT San Antonio because we have wonderful Ivan Hurd and Cassandra Keeling teaching, so there hasn't been a need for me to do that. And then I teach an introduction to music, a music and health class that is an interdisciplinary class, and that's my other. I basically have a 1-1 teaching load.
That's great. I'm glad that you brought up health, because that was my next question. How did this interest in health come about? How did you get started?
Yeah, it was while I was at Virginia Tech. It was something that just I started thinking about in the back of my mind. And it came about in a way because I had seen a couple of people who passed away after long battles with cancer. And they were people that I knew that loved music. And they weren't musicians themselves, but they loved music. And I had this thought that it would have been nice. I didn't know them well enough to feel comfortable doing this, but I wish that I could have gone and played for them while they were in hospice, while they were in the last stages of their illness. And I reached out to a friend of mine who's a music therapist and asked him if I was out of my depth wanting to do something like that, because I want to respect the boundaries of what music therapists do. And I know that a lot of music in hospice is done by music therapists. And he said, no, that's what you're talking about is something different. And if you want to do work like that, you should, you could pursue that. Absolutely. And so I started looking into the field of music and health and realized that it's a wide field. And there's a lot of work being done on how music can impact the health and well-being of people inside healthcare, outside of healthcare, in public health. And I learned a ton. So mostly in those last few years at Virginia Tech, I just started learning and reading about what was happening in the field. And I didn't have a clear vision for what I wanted to do with it. I just had this kind of idea about music in hospice settings, maybe. But then when I moved to the University of Texas at San Antonio, the dean who hired me told me there was an interest in potentially building a music therapy degree in the school. We haven't done that yet, but we're hoping to still. But also, San Antonio has a very large medical center, several different hospital systems, and there were opportunities to do some arts and health work there. From the time I moved to San Antonio, I met the founder of a nonprofit there in San Antonio who was doing arts outreach in the hospitals, both music and visual art, and then also creative writing work in the hospital. And I was able to volunteer with them to get trained through kind of their methodology. And so I did bedside music and corridor concerts. And that was an amazing experience. It's an amazing experience to play solo piano for somebody in their hospital room.
Right.
And I learned so much from that experience. And I kept tweaking my music and health class and made it interdisciplinary, so students from neuroscience and pre-med could come take it. And we look at all of this research, and I joined the Brain Health Consortium and started, I've in recent years have started writing grant proposals with people to try to do some pilot research projects. And so a lot of things are still kind of at the beginning stages, except for the veterans band, which is a little bit further along. But that's kind of how I got started. And I, as I look back, I can see this full circle thing, which is that when I was in grad school, I was in my doctorate, I had two minor fields. One was pedagogy. Mm-hmm. The other one was arts outreach and education. And I was very interested in building audiences and audience engagement. A lot of performers are. Right. But I was looking at it from the perspective of a lot of things that people at Eastman were doing, especially like the Ying Quartet, going out into the schools and into community centers and the kind of outreach that they were doing. And I was interested in what symphony orchestras were doing in the schools, the education programs that they were building. And I see now that morphed, that it's still that idea of how music reaches people who may not have known that music could touch them in a particular way. And it's just...
Right. Yeah. It's wonderful. I mean, it's so interesting that one of the themes of this conference, the NCKP 2025, seems to be health. We had a speaker who talked about, and then we heard a wonderful TEDx talk from you about the Encore program. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. And Sarah Hoover and I know each other quite well from the music and health field now, so it was wonderful to hear her keynote. So Encore is a beginning music program for veterans that we offer at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And it's a beginning and intermediate concert band program. And we started it as a health and well-being initiative for veterans. And the mission is to offer a musical experience that is challenging, a meaningful artistic challenge, and an opportunity to foster connection among the band members. And there's no prior musical experience required, and there's no cost for them to participate. So, and
how large is the program now?
So now we are about to start our 4th year, and we have about 80 veterans in the band. We may end up with more than that by the time we start in September, but we have about 80, and they range in age from their 30s to their 80s, and some of them haven't played in decades. Some of them have never played an instrument, so we kind of have a range of abilities, and it's really exciting to watch them do this.
Well, and you mentioned in your talk yesterday that San Antonio has a large number of veterans and military, right?
Right. We have the fastest growing Veterans Administration branch in the country. We have over 159,000 veterans and 80,000 active duty military.
Right. So this started 4 years ago, you said? Or
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Yep. And how do people hear about this program?
We got lucky at the very, very beginning. One of the local television stations found out about the story from one of our professors, who's very good at engaging with this TV station. He has a tuba euphonium ensemble at the university. He's one of the mentors in our program. He's an Air Force band veteran, and he managed to get them to come out and do a story about the Veterans Band. And that's actually how we recruited a lot of our first members. Since then, we've been able to get the word out through some of the veteran service organizations. So we send a lot of emails. The VA knows about us, and so they will send emails, and they also, a lot of them will do personal referrals. So the psychologists in the VA know about us. The social workers know about us. The city of San Antonio, there's a person in the Veteran Service Office who will send an email out to every veteran who works for the city of San Antonio. And we attend some of the veteran service fairs and put flyers out and things like that, and word of mouth. A lot of the band members are recruited by friends that are in the band.
Yes, right.
You need to come do this with us.
That's such a wonderful program. So and this is run as a program of the School of Music, or is it?
It's part of UTSA Arts, which is a community engagement arm of the university. It's basically a research center. So it's a community engagement program.
Are students in the school involved also in
a little bit? We've had some involved as mentors on and off, and we're hoping to get the instrumental music education students more engaged in it as we go along too. They need a little more training on working with adult beginners. Right. As you can imagine. We've had our string music education majors we have string project at UTSA, and we have wonderful pedagogical training for our string majors. And our program has won an award from ASTA, as a National String Project Consortium. And I think part of that is because they get such great training from our string pedagogy professor. And I want the same for our instrumental music education majors so that they can work with Encore. So that's kind of the next step for us to do that. So I want to honor the veterans by making sure that they get really good training. So, up to this point, the mentors have all been, professional musicians.
That's wonderful. And so the participating veterans, do they do concerts, performances? That must be so important for
it is. They've done a couple. They've done a concert at the end of every essentially long semester. So December and May. they've done a few performances out in the community. They did the national anthem at a minor league baseball game. There was somebody who organized, like an event manager who organized a Veterans Day, kind of a day-long concert outside of it was actually a Walmart kind of near the Air Force Base. And they were one of the groups that performed at that. So they've gotten invitations to perform at a couple of different military events this fall. So we're starting to get gigs. So
that's nice.
So yeah, they're pretty excited
I'm
about
sure.
that.
And this is supported by the university or external grants, or
external grants. Yeah, we're offering our facilities basically. So there's no cost to that. And we're supporting it. We have instrument storage, and and actually a lot of the instruments are kind of hand-me-down instruments from the marching band. But the finances of it are all donations, foundation grants, individual grants, Texas Commission for the Arts. We have some wonderful foundations in San Antonio, the Stumberg Foundation and the Military Civilian Foundation. So yeah, we're getting there.
That sounds like a great program in a perfect place also, because I'm sure there's a need there for this kind of programs. How do you have a sense of how the program is impacting some of the participants? Do you have stories from them? Or
Yes, very much. We've gotten a few stories from people, very, very personal stories from people saying how much it has helped them. Some of them have told us that they find it very therapeutic. We actually created a documentary about the band. It was directed by a student. It's really well done, and it has won several awards, including a film award from the Veterans Film Festival in LA, Best Student Documentary, which is great. And it tells the story of 3 of the members of the band, 2 of whom are widowed. And you can see from that, one of them essentially had found out about the band 6 months after his wife had died and decided to join, and talks about how the band has helped him come back to life. And so that's like the best testimonial I could ask for, and there are others who have said similar things. It's it's bringing them out of loneliness. It's getting them out of the house. Right. In one case, there's a veteran who had given me permission to share her story. She, at one point in her life, was a professional musician, but then had some kind of an accident that caused a spinal injury and had to give that up. And she's an oboe player, and she was receiving treatment. This is years later now that she'd been receiving treatment for continuing injuries from this spinal injury. And then the VA cut her treatment back significantly, and she was very worried about her future with, and it was causing problems in her hand, and also her mental health well-being. Wow. And she found out about the band and finally got up the nerve to join us. And we rented an oboe for her for a while. And she just came back to life joining the band, and is so happy doing it now that she's now bought her own oboe. She's joined 2 other community bands.
Wow,
she's
that's amazing.
It's bringing her a lot of joy. And so she, wrote me kind of a testimonial about what it means to her to be part of the band. And we've had other people say that too, somebody who talked about going through a difficult divorce and caring for an elderly parent, and how this has really brought them out of their depression. And so we're looking at now trying to gather some formal evidence of that, because it will potentially help us apply for bigger research grants. Right. And so we're planning to start a pilot study this fall to gather, using some of the validated measures of psychological well-being and like depression and things like that. And then also doing some individual semi-structured interviews and things like that. So that's all new for me. So I'm excited. I've been reading so much of this research that I'm excited to get going on that.
Right. Yeah. I think it's such a testament of the power of music
and making music together.
Like the sense of community. I'm sure that creates. It's interesting. You started as a choir accompanist, and now you're creating choirs of people who are not singing, but they're playing.
Right.
But, good. So one of the questions I had, and it's a very general question, I think this story that you're telling us and the encore, all of this kind of answers already the impact of music in the world today. How do you think music will shape the world?
I think if people the more people have access to it and the more they see how music helps them tell their story, then the more positive influence music will have in their life. So some of the projects that I've been involved with, like one of the grant proposals that I've worked on is the idea of working with Alzheimer's patients and their family caregivers and using music that is already meaningful to them and their families to help them with their daily activities, to helping them in their daily lives to improve their quality of life, like learning how they could use music in a way that could help them more. And there are already studies being done on that in California and in Europe and different places. And so building on that, it's finding the ways that music can be used more powerfully in that way to just help people feel, bring their feelings out and improve their lives. And I don't mean to talk about music just as a tool, but music as a way of being more of a whole person and,
right.
Not being so isolated or not being disconnected from who you are as a person. Technology, sometimes you can be disconnected because you're passive, you're watching what's happening
right.
around you. And I think music can make you much more engaged as a person.
Wonderful. And going back to you as a pianist, how does piano inspires you?
It inspires me because it allows me to communicate with other people without words. The greatest joy that I have when I'm playing with somebody else, don't even have to have an audience. It's that intuitive communication that you have with somebody else where you're just understanding each other. You're starting to get that sense of what they're trying to say and what you're trying to communicate, and you're reading each other through the music. I love that feeling so much. And then communicating that with an audience, and that's truly, truly special. And I've now had the opportunity to do the performances in healthcare settings, which is a very different kind of communication, and that changed me a lot too. The bedside music in particular. So piano inspires me by the way you can communicate without words.
Right, and such an impactful way of seeing music. Right. Well, Tracy, thank you so much. It's been really a pleasure to learn more about your work and to talk to you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure of mine. For me too.
Thanks.
The Francis Clark Center is a not-for-profit educational organization that serves the advancement of piano teaching, learning, and performing. Divisions include Piano Magazine, Piano Inspires Kids, Journal for Piano Research, National Conference on Keyboard Pedagogy, the New School for Music Study, Piano Education Press, International Online Teacher Education, and Piano Inspires Online Community Hub. Please visit us at pianoinspires.com to learn more about our impactful work and inspiring community.